Down with our senior U.S. correspondent, Mike Wagenheim, this week to talk about a host of pressing issues facing the state of Israel at the International Forum, and also get his thoughts on his successor, Gilad Erdan, just appointed to the position this week.
Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Danon, joining us from New York City. Thank you for the time. Just recently, Germany finally declaring all wings of Hezbollah to be a terrorist organization after reportedly Israel provided evidence to Germany of terrorist activity going on its own soil. Much of Europe has been very late in recognizing all wings of Hezbollah to be terrorist entities. Do you feel that Germany's twist here may provoke some other countries in Europe to take a second look at exactly what's going on in European soil vis-a-vis Hezbollah?
We think it's a very important step by Germany. They declared all parts of Hezbollah as a terrorist organization, not only the political wing or the military wing. That was a very, very important thing, and we thank them for that. And we call other European countries to follow Germany. The money is coming from Iran. It goes through Hezbollah, and it's posing a threat not only to us Israelis, but also to the Europeans, because they export terrorism to the region, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, the Gaza Strip, Judea and Samaria, but also to the Europe, and that's why the Europeans should be worried about it.
Are you getting any signals from the diplomatic community that others are frustrated with the lack of Bashar al-Assad to really put things together in Syria, and B, should there be concern on the part of Israel that if in fact Russia decides one day not to back Assad anymore, that all heck could break loose on Israel's border once again?
We are very determined not to allow Iran to build their bases on our borders on the Golan Heights. We look what happened in Lebanon. We don't want to repeat the same mistakes we did in Lebanon. So we are very determined. We push back, and whenever we know about a shipment, we take action. And that will be our policy also in the future. Regarding Assad, we send a very clear message. We don't care about your inner politics and about your interest. Once you are posing a threat to the citizens of Israel, we will act. And that's the message we deliver to our colleagues in Moscow. They know that, they accept it. Sometimes they're not happy with everything that we are doing, but the security of our citizens is above all.
Mike Pompeo, the U.S. Secretary of State, visiting Israel this week. A lot of times when the Secretary of State makes a trip to Israel, it relates to security concerns. So the agenda isn't clear for Secretary Pompeo. Any knowledge, any insight of what to expect from the Secretary's trip?
The issues are still there, mainly the issue of Iran, the presence of terrorist organizations in Syria, sovereignty. So we have a lot of issues to discuss, and it's coming in a very special day when we are about to form a new government in Israel. So for us, I think it's a good chance to introduce to our allies in Washington the values and the ideas that the new government would like to present and to implement.
Something that could very well come up at the UN in the next couple of weeks is the issue of Israel applying sovereignty, or some would say annexation of Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. There are already threats emanating from France and the European Union of possible sanctions on Israel if the country goes ahead with these plans that the government is making. This has been a topic that has come up time and time again at the UN, but it seems like it's getting serious at this point. It's not just an election ploy anymore. It's actually part of the government agenda. What are your plans in these last few weeks, and what are you hearing going around the UN right now in terms of a possible action against Israel if the country moves ahead with these plans?
So definitely we hear those voices. The Arab League met, we see actions here at the UN, but at the end of the day, this is a decision of the Israeli government, period. We are the one to decide whether to apply sovereignty or not. And I want to remind everybody that when Menachem Begin, our late prime minister, decided to apply sovereignty over the Golan Heights, which was also liberated in 1967, many people condemned Israel. I think also the US, they were not happy about it. But at the end of the day, people accepted it. And look what's happening today on the Golan Heights, how beautiful, how stable it is, and look what's happening in Syria. So we should take the right decision for us, and then we can deal with the outcome in the international environment.
In other news today, Israel is drawing up plans to resume